How's it going, everyone? It's Tavi from Weather Sponge 1000, and in this video we're going to focus on Invest 90L and determine if this does have a possibility of becoming Tropical Storm Danielle within the next 5 days, as right now it's currently just to the west of the Cape Verde Islands. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. So as we get about taking a look at the 5-day graphical tropical weather outlook, and currently the chance that this develops within the next 5 days is low, but it's on the higher end of a low chance. So there is that possibility that if as this disturbance continues to move westward, we could potentially see that chance increase if the National Hurricane Center and the computer models detect that the conditions will become more favorable as this heads further westward. But as of right now, we have a low 10% chance of this developing within the next 48 hours and a low 30% within the next 5 days. So we do see that the chance does increase at later during the forecast time frame, which is a little bit of a concern, because if we do see that increase, then there is a possibility that maybe by tomorrow the chance could increase to a moderate chance if the National Hurricane Center continues to detect that further westward the conditions will be more favorable for tropical cyclone development. But we need to take a look at several different factors before we can jump to that conclusion. So first, let's take a look at the water vapor imagery, and we do see that there isn't much convection going on with Invest 90L at this time. We do see that there are very few areas where there's a high amount of thunderstorm activity, and we do see that there's a little bit of stable air just to the north of it. And while for the most part, at least in the area where Invest 90L is located, there's a high amount of humidity. We aren't seeing that high level of convection just yet, as we do see that the thunderstorms are very scattered at this time, and there isn't anywhere close to well-defined center of circulation anywhere embedded with any of these thunderstorms, and we don't see a high amount of rotation either. In fact, on the southern side of this disturbance, we do see a lot of the clouds moving towards the west, which is as a direct result of an upper level low that's located just to the south of the equator at this time, that's drifting a lot of the clouds in the upper levels of the atmosphere further westward. So it is dealing with a decent amount of shear at this time and a little bit of dry air just to the north of it. However, the conditions should improve to the point where this does have the potential of potentially organizing itself enough to where this could become a tropical depression or tropical storm within the next 5 days, as the wind shear is expected to subside as this heads further westward, and the dry air will subside a little bit as well. Now, taking a look at what the computer models are saying at this time, let's first take a look at the GFS model, and you see that as of right now there is a decent amount of wind shear just to the south of Invest 90L at this time. It is an area where the wind shear is at least manageable enough to where it could at least hold its own and not completely drift away and not have any possibility of developing. But of course, on the southern side, we do still see that the upper level winds are quite strong, which is inhibiting it from really being able to organize itself and carry a high level of convection with surrounding the center of circulation. But that the wind shear is expected to decrease over the next several days as it continues to head further westward, because we do see that's going to be right under an upper level high, which could be a concern, not only because the wind shear will be reduced as a result of Invest 90L being under this upper level high, but it will increase the divergence in the upper levels of the atmosphere for a higher amount of convection to occur and a higher amount of air to rise, which would allow a more well-oiled organization for Invest 90L, as it'll be able to support as being under an upper level high would support a little bit more convection, since there's so much divergence happening in the upper levels of the atmosphere for more air to be able to rise and condense, of course, for to release more latent heat for this storm to energize itself a little bit more and potentially strengthen as this heads further westward. And if I were to continue to move forward, wind shear won't necessarily be a problem over the next several days, but it could become a problem very late into the forecast. I'm talking about beyond the 5-day mark, because we do see the existence of an upper level low that's going to be located just to the north of it, and we do see that the wind shear does become a little bit more hostile at this time once it approaches the Caribbean. So as a result, the GFS model isn't really developing a tropical storm and believes that it will just fizzle out in the midst of this strong wind shear that it's expected to deal with as it heads further westward. And that's not the only issue that this Invest 90L will deal with as it heads further westward, because if I were to continue to move forward, we do see that there's still going to be a high amount of dry air as it heads further westward, and that should be enough to potentially fizzle out this storm to the point where it's just a regular disorganized tropical wave, and not really a well organized low pressure system that has the potential of developing into a tropical storm, as there's still going to be a high amount of dry air throughout the western portion of the Caribbean, which should inhibit a high amount of convection around center circulation for this to have a good chance of developing beyond the 5-day mark. But there's still uncertainty regarding the amount of dry air, of course, and how strong the wind shear will be as it heads further westward. There's still a lot of days to really iron out the forecast. Maybe we could see the atmosphere become a little bit more moist than expected throughout the Caribbean, and this ridge move a little bit northward to a point where the storm would avoid a little bit more of that dry, sinking air as a result of being less under the influence of the strong northerly flow associated with this ridge that's bringing a lot of that dry air further southward. So there's still a lot of time to iron out the forecast, or we're of course going to need to pay close attention to this upper level low that's right in the middle of the North Atlantic region. So we're going to need to pay close attention to that. But at this point, it seems like a chance that this does develop into Tropical Storm Danielle is low, but it's always something to pay close attention to when we're talking about a tropical wave in the main development region. Now, taking a look at what the European model is stating. So the latest European model run is just coming out, and we do see that the European model still is expecting a high amount of dry air to pretty much dominate a lot of the main developed region, and that should be able to that should prevent this tropical wave from developing into Tropical Storm Danielle. But of course, we're going to need to wait and see if this forecast remains the same over the next several days to really determine if that will be the case. Now, taking a look at what the ensemble members are stating at this time, and we do see that the GFS model, for the most part, while it does think that there will at least be a well-defined low pressure system that could develop, that has the possibility of developing into Tropical Storm Danielle, which is the reason why we see this ensemble member run that shows the possibility of a tropical wave. We still do see that most of them don't expect it to strengthen much and remain a very weak tropical wave, as very few of them, I'd say, really develop this into tropical storm status. We do have a couple where we do, I think, have like two models where we do see the green outline, which represents 40 to 50 knot winds, which is tropical storm status. But of course, wind is not the only thing you need for this tropical wave to be considered tropical storm. It of course needs a closed center of circulation. So just because we do see 40 to 50 knot winds in some of the spaghetti models does not mean it's necessarily a tropical storm, because we need to see enough rotation and enough of a closed small center of circulation to really categorize a tropical wave as being a tropical storm. It's not only just because of the wind, but we do see at least some of them develop it potentially to a tropical storm. But you see, for the most part, the GFS model doesn't expect much of a future with the GFS model. Spaghetti models don't expect much of a future for this tropical wave. And we do see with the European model is definitely does not have any sort of confidence that this will develop anywhere remotely close to a tropical storm, and doesn't even have a high amount of spaghetti models which show the projected path, which shows that the European model does not even have the confidence to say that there will be a tropical wave with a well-defined low pressure system that could potentially develop into a tropical storm, as we see very few ensemble members as a result of that. So as of right now, it seems like a chance that Tropical Storm Danielle forming is lower, but there's still that possibility, and we need to just wait and see how much dry air and how much wind shear there will be in the main developed region beyond the 5-day mark to really determine if this does have a good chance of developing. So we're just gonna need to wait and see. But anyways, guys, I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content, and I hope you guys have a great day.